The bases dropped on a Tuesday edition of Soccer Down Here, October 1st. It is a pretty big Tuesday in the soccer world, with Major League Soccer preparing for Decision Day just a few days away, with the first leg of the Copa Libertadores semifinals between River Plate and Boca Juniors tonight, with Champions League action in Europe. A ton of things to talk about this morning. A couple programming notes. Later today, 6 o'clock, we will be live at the Brewhouse Cafe in Little 5 Points for soccer over there. It is a Champions League recap show, a weekend recap show, and a Copa Libertadores preview show. You can listen on the app. You can listen at soccerdownhere.net and at Spreaker, and hang out with us and watch Boca and River from the Brewhouse. Kickoff is around 8:30 for that one, and we'll take you up to it and get you set for it with lineups and players to watch and kind of the situation with that, because it's a big game anyway because it's a Copa Libertadores semifinal, but it's Boca River, so it's also a big game, and it's also an even bigger game because these teams met in the final last time around, and we know how that went down. They had to move it, the second leg, to Madrid. This is where that second leg should have been played, at El Monumental, the home of River Plate. It's going to be a fun one to talk about and a fun one to watch tonight. So if you're in town and you want to come hang out with SDH and watch it, come on down to the Brewhouse Cafe this evening. We've got a lot of different things to get into this morning, though, John, and we're going to talk some Matias Almeyda, some of his comments about referees, about the league, and a potential suitor for his services. We're going to talk about Hugo Perez and his new job that I'm a little ticked off about. Not at him. I'm a little ticked off about how he ended up where he is, and we'll get into all of that. But we've got Tuesday thoughts, and people have had thoughts since yesterday's show and into today, and we like to hear from we like to hear what the people are saying. Let's hear what the people are saying.
Let's start with Tafka from a carryover from yesterday. When are we shocked by the rankings MLS puts out? Let's just remember this.
Oh, geez, I didn't know this had happened.
Yeah, at PHX Rising FC won 20 straight matches, then went 0-1-1 and was dethroned from first place, essentially making power rankings a who won this week list. And then the facepalm emoji.
I mean, they should be more than a just who won this week list, but I missed their power rankings. I'm going back to see if I can find them. What did they do?
Now I'm going back. I think that Tafka was specifically referencing the USL list and not necessarily the MLS list.
Okay. The USL list, I mean, even still, like, power rankings shouldn't just be the last week. I mean, the last week should maybe have more weight. But yes, when you win as many games in a row as Phoenix Rising, you lose one and you draw one, you shouldn't lose your top spot that quickly. That's a little silly.
And I'm waiting for the dinosaur here in Office HD to dial up that particular article so I can tell you just how far they dropped.
Funny you said dial-up, because it's probably dial-up internet.
You ain't kidding, brother. When you have the hamsters going at it and trying to dial things up and figure out, all right, so there goes the cache. There goes the Google ads.
Is it making that bleeping and blopping and noise in the background like... Does it sound like that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
okay, so Pittsburgh is your new number one in the USL Championship.
I'll throw that in the trash. Just no, we're done. We're done. No, that's just dumb. That's just bad.
Up 3 spots. I feel like Casey Kasem all of a sudden, or Mark Goodman and Alan Hunter. It's up 3 spots from number 4 to number 1.
No, that's just bad. There's no way the Pittsburgh Riverhounds are the best team in a USL Championship right now. It's just not true. absolute, complete and utter silliness. How many games in a row are they unbeaten? Since August 17th, that's really good. But they got beat 5-0 at North Carolina on August 17th. That alone, including 2 scoreless draws in this run, should take you
You've
out
been
of
disqualified, sir.
Yeah, I mean, are they in the top 5 in current power rankings? Yeah, that's fair. I'd put them in that for sure. But Phoenix Rising is doing something in USL Championship that we've never seen. They're on 72 points through 31 games. They have 22 wins. They have 3 losses on the year. They've scored 80 goals. Their goal differential's 50. I mean, no.
I think those are a few record-setting things that they've done this season.
Just because they're how long did they get to? Did they get to 20 wins?
Yeah. They got to 20, and then they lost and drew in their next 2.
They lost who won on the road in Fresno, who last time I checked is number 2 in the Western Conference, right there.
And number 6 in the power rankings.
Well, no, that's probably fine. I don't know what you're yelling about with that one. I'm
down
saying
4 spots after a 2-1 loss at San Antonio.
Okay, well, they beat Phoenix. I don't know. Anyway, they beat Phoenix. They're the number 2 team in the West. That's not exactly a bad loss. And then they drew at New Mexico, who's 11th, but it's on the road. Do those 2 score lines in your last 2 matches, you are total aggregate scoring, you've conceded 4 and you've scored 3. Does that erase a 20-game win streak? No, it doesn't. You're still the best team in USL Championship. Stop being silly with power rankings. Let's move on.
You know who's number 7 in their power rankings?
Let's move on.
Birmingham Legion.
Ay, Dios mío.
After losing to Charleston, they went up a spot.
I don't know. I don't understand power rankings in the USL Championship. Maybe one day I can.
But the Stripes are up 11 spots from 27 to 16.
And they should be moving up the rankings. They've been playing very, very well.
3-0-2 in their last 5. But, yeah, no. Just no.
No, move
Disregard.
on. Let's get another thought. There's more thoughts, please.
There are.
We don't need
an
in-depth discussion of the USL Championship power rankings to kick off the show.
Well, just the general angst and malaise over it and the concept. Goonie Goohoo on Twitter. The back line is in question for me. I'm not sure what happened between midseason and now, but whatever it is, it needs to get fixed before the first playoff game.
You've had inconsistency in the group. I mean, that's the number one issue here is you have not fielded the same back 3 more than 3 times in a row since the Houston match. And a lot of that's down to yellow card suspensions, red card suspensions, injuries. That's a huge issue here. I don't know why there's freaking out about the back line after the Montreal match, because there's 2 different issues. Freaking out about the back line would make sense after the New York City match, because the back line as a group looked bad. Montreal, the defense played well. It was an individual breakdown where Leandro Gonzalez Perez was beaten on the dribble by Orji Okonkwo, and he puts in a cross and picks out a goal scorer. He shouldn't have been allowed to put in the cross that easily. That's not a backline issue. That was an individual issue. There's differences. And I thought the the defense was much more organized, much better against Montreal, but you still had an individual breakdown. That's another discussion. The overall back line, look, you're going to have to make a decision, and we talked about it a lot yesterday. You are in a point of the season where individual mistakes or risky play will end your season, because you're getting into the postseason where everything's a knockout. You have to be more secure defensively. I think Sunday in Montreal was the first step in that direction. I think Michael Parkhurst, Jeff Lorenowitz being part of that team wasn't a fluke, and I think that gives you a little more solidity in that group. And I think what you're going to do is defend more with numbers and not be as reckless going forward. Ultimately, when you think back to championship teams, if you are just a team that can't defend and has to score 3-4 goals a game, I don't think you win many championships. You have to be able to keep zeros or ones at a minimum on the board. And with the attacking talent Atlanta has, you get Barco, Pitti playing well, Joseph back in playoffs, and that's a big question, but you have to hope for it at this point, and I would expect that he will be there. You have that three, they should be able to create some things in playoff situations, and you need to defend more with security. And I think Montreal was a sign that could be the play going forward.
Michael Head wants to know about the yellow card policy for the playoffs. When is there a reset? Hashtag asking for LGP.
Let's take a look at that because it is a little bit different playoff format. So let's see if MLSsoccer.com has updated their rules and regs in these situations. Regular season. Do we get a postseason? Yes, we do. We are scrolling. We're getting into the formats. Here you go. Yellow card accumulation entering the playoffs. Yellow card accumulation thresholds are reset entering the playoffs. A player who reaches an accumulation threshold in the last regular season match is eligible for the playoffs and is eligible for the first regular season match of the following season. So, I believe LGP is one yellow card away from suspension. Essentially, he is not. He's not going to pick one up Sunday and be suspended for the playoffs or for the first match of next season. Now, a player who receives a straight red or a second yellow, and which results in a red, in the last regular season match is suspended for the first game of the playoffs or the first game of next season. And any sanction from the disciplinary committee would include playoff matches or regular season matches. Yellow card accumulation in the playoffs. This goes from once the playoffs begin up to MLS Cup, where it resets again. A player accumulating a yellow card in round one and the conference semifinal will be suspended for the conference final. Now, that doesn't carry over to regular season. It's only in playoff play. So if they do that, but they lose the conference semifinal, then it's washed away. A player who earns his second yellow card in the conference championship match is eligible to play in MLS Cup. And the red card, 2 yellows, is the same situation. So you're not going to get dinged for yellow card accumulation going into the playoffs or going into MLS Cup. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
We're good. Did you see the John Solomon tweet from the Aspen Institute from a couple days ago?
I did not.
Okay. John says that soccer, and this is through the Aspen Institute, soccer's lost 474,000 kids ages 6 to 12 in the last 5 years. Soccer's participation rate is now closer to tennis than baseballs and basketballs. And then there's a link to the youth sports data that the Aspen Institute has collected. Shiva, seeing that, had a question.
Okay.
I was wondering what your thoughts are about youth soccer in the U.S. I feel a lot of this possible drop in participation is due to price. Academy programs cost a lot compared to recreational ones.
But that wouldn't rule out people playing recreationally. And I do think that there are recreational programs that the Aspen Institute doesn't consider. I'd have to go back and read the study. I don't know where they're pulling their numbers from. If they're pulling just from U.S. Soccer or one U.S. youth governing body, there's a bunch, so it gets a little difficult to pull, and there's also a number of leagues that are unaffiliated and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if it's a situation where things that have been counted are not being counted right now. I don't know. I do know that there is a drop across the board in youth sports participation in all sports. There's varying drops in different sports, but kids are not playing youth sports in the same numbers that they used to. There's other things that are occupying kids' time, whether it's esports, whether it's other activities, or nothing. It's across the board, but it sounds like soccer is getting hit a little bit more than some others. All right. Now, what Shiva's saying is a very important issue. I don't think it's necessarily affecting the overall participation numbers, but that doesn't mean it's not a problem. Youth soccer is a business, and it has become a business over the last few decades, and people are getting paid to coach and getting paid to run youth clubs. And how do they get paid? They get paid from registration fees. So people get raises, fees go up. You hire people who are better at what they do or have more training, or you pay to train your staff, then these things happen. I think the argument about getting rid of pay to play is incorrect, because if that's the case, if you say, okay, we're going to pass a law that kids are not going to be charged to pay to play youth soccer. They cannot be charged. The quality of your coaching, of your clubs, of all of it is going to go dramatically down, because then you're relying on volunteers. Unless you're finding money elsewhere. It's different in other countries, and people point this out all the time. And look, I don't know the youth soccer landscape outside of the academies in Germany or England or France or any other country. Fees for playing are not unheard of. When you get into the local Latino leagues in Atlanta, and I've put together teams that have played in those leagues, there's registration fees. There's per game fees. It's structured completely differently. You're not paying a bunch of money up front. You're paying a little bit more as you go. There's a registration cost to have the player registered, and then usually it's a per game that you are paying to use the field and to pay referees. Things like that. It's a very different structure, but you are paying, and that's common. The problem is now that it's gotten so out of whack that it's difficult. One reason it's gotten out of whack is if you want to be a top coach, if you want to study and you want to get your badges, and generally, I mean, I think this is an easy flow chart to follow. If you are a higher badged coach, if you have an A, for example, you have an A coaching license, you should be able to charge more money for people to play on your team. You should get paid more because you are, according to the U.S. Soccer Federation, a better coach. Seems logical, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of costs that go into getting those badges, and there are a lot of coaches who just can't do it. They can't commit the time to it. They can't commit the money to it. The ones that do are the ones who are generally being paid by their club to go get that. Again, that is another fee that comes up. It gets passed on. There's not an easy solution here. The easiest solution is when professional clubs get involved in player development, because they have a different aim. They're not trying to keep an independent club together and operating and paying different coaches. Their aim is to produce professional players that then they will make money on down the line, either because they become a first-team player and all the rewards that are reaped from that, or they are sold and money is brought in that way. That changes the paradigm a bit. It's still not necessarily free to play, but that cost is not being passed on to the player or their family. That cost is being eaten elsewhere, whether it's coming in through sponsorships, whether it's coming in through an investment by the owner in the professional club, whatever. It's not easy to fix all this. And I don't know what most people's definition of fix is. There's another element of, there's a major difference in my mind if you are a kid who is 14 years old and have a future in playing as a professional. You're on a different track than a kid who is 14 years old who is playing because they like to play and they're playing with their friends. Two completely different aims. And I think too often in the youth game, the kid who is there to play for fun and with their friends and is not going to be a professional or not go on to college is treated and charged the same way because of the way that the youth game is sold as the kid who maybe could be a professional or earn a college scholarship, and they have to put in the work to get to that level and blah, blah, blah. That's probably my biggest issue with it is I think that, when you see like exorbitant fees for a Classic 5 team, for example, to play on a Classic 5 team, you are 8 or 9 teams away, depending on how the club is structured, or 6 or 7. It just depends on how many leagues they're in outside of Classic 1. If you're on a Classic 5 team and paying the same amount, you are a long way away from being on the top team at that club, let alone one of the best players in your age group in the state. The fees for those teams should not be the same. People should not pay those fees. And that's the other side of it. It's not like anybody is saying to a parent that, you have to do this for your kid to play. There are other ways to play. And there's a little bit of an education gap there as well. So youth soccer in the United States, there are issues with it. There are things that need to get better with it. There is not a blanket fix. And I don't want to throw cold water on everybody who's saying fix this, fix that, fix that. There's not one thing to fix. There's a lot of different things that are going to need to change in it. Education for parents needs to change. Understanding realistic vision for where their kid can be as a player is a big part of it, and that's a very difficult one for any parent. The club side of it and their structure, and I think selling things with integrity in terms of some of your club, some of your teams, and not overcharging and things like that. It's difficult. It's very difficult. I don't think it's affecting the overall participation number, to go back to Shiva's question, in a huge way. I think there's probably some that kids are dropping out completely, and that's a shame because they could still play at a much lower price point at clubs nearby if they knew that. You don't have to pay a ton of money to play soccer. But sometimes the way it is sold, it is believed that you do. And that's a shame.
Next up on the board, Chris Ashley at Youth Guide Cash, one of the contributors to Greenville Triumph Weekly for us over at gblsoccer.com and YTSS. Yeah, that soccer show. He says he has some Tuesday thoughts on the hashtag juice box switch up. Being that it is October, why don't you give a crack in using Halloween candy this week? After all, candy is the universal language.
That's not bad. That could work. You'll have to remember that one for when we talk about Decision Day matches on Friday. That's a possibility. I didn't know it had become an official hashtag juicebox switch up.
I didn't either. That was the first time I'd seen it.
Well, you might want to fill in people on what that means.
Okay. Well, when we discuss the G word, the betting, the gambling aspect of it, we know.
Word.
I didn't know how we're supposed to use that word or anything.
You can use that word. That word's okay.
All right.
It's fine.
Didn't know how clean a show we were.
It's not dirty. We're not running action here, John.
But, we do have youngins listening. I'm just trying to be respectful.
Okay, I didn't know that it was a bad thing for youngins.
Well, when you're under 21, it is. You don't want them to, you don't want them to go down the wrong road early.
Okay, we're gonna slap the NC-17 label on John's next statements.
Okay, so usually what we do is we consult various online betting establishments when it comes to delivering numbers and favorites, whether or not one team is a prohibitive favorite, kind of like the LA Galaxy, where this past weekend in Vancouver was a plus 900, as an example. So basically what that means is if you were in the extreme minority outside of British Columbia province.
They didn't believe it either.
Okay, well then if you were in the extreme minority someplace on this planet that Vancouver was going to beat the LA Galaxy, if you bet $100 at plus 900, you would get 900 in return. And so that's what we do. So when we're referring to juice boxes and juice box purveyors, we are referring to the online gambling establishments that we are referencing to give said numbers on a weekly basis.
Yes, and the more important link here is we are using juice boxes as a euphemism for dollars and cents.
Yes.
Because it's what people do. It's kind of just a funny thing to do. And we were called out for it and said the joke wasn't funny anymore, so we asked for help from the listeners to make us funny again. So I think Halloween candy is maybe going to make us funny, at least for a week. We'll find out on Friday. We might get Halloween candy thrown at us after the show, but we'll see what happens. We'll give it a go.
Yes.
Thanks for the suggestion, Chris. I appreciate it. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to dig into some news that broke yesterday about Hugo Perez. If you don't know who Hugo Perez is, we'll fill you in after the break. It's a very interesting bit of news when it comes to U.S. soccer and the youth side and the youth national teams and the long-time battle about dual nationals who can represent the United States or Mexico. Mexico has made quite a bold move, and the U.S. is going to need to figure something out rather quickly. We'll talk about that after the break. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. SDH, October 1st. We'll be getting into your Tuesday thoughts a little more as we go this morning. Thanks for listening to the show. Let's get into the Hugo Perez update. So, Hugo Perez, if you're not sure who that is, he is a U.S. men's national team legend, first off. Played in the 1994 World Cup. Should have played in the 1990 World Cup, but was returning from injury and kind of kept out of it. He was the U.S. Soccer Athlete of the Year in 1991 as part of the first Gold Cup winning squad. Played 73 matches for the U.S. between 84 and 94. He kind of was at the worst time possible to be a super talented player who could play for the U.S., because it was at the very end of the North American Soccer League. He played with the LA Aztecs. He signed with them in 82. Played a little bit for Tampa Bay, moved on to the San Diego Sockers, played major indoor soccer league with the Sockers. He went to Europe, tried to go to Parma, but couldn't get the work permit to go play in Serie A. He went to Red Star Paris in France. He played in Sweden. He played in Saudi Arabia. And then he came back and played for that World Cup team in 1994. He appeared in the match against Brazil. After that, Hugo Perez went into coaching. And he was the coach of the U15 U.S. Youth National Team from August 2012 to August 2014. His departure was very, very strange. And just the handling of it was bizarre. This was during the Jurgen Klinsmann years, and it didn't really make any sense. He told his U15 group in August of 2014 that it was his last camp with the national team. He said, I don't know what is next for me. That is up to U.S. Soccer. Obviously, I'm employed by them, and whatever they do, I'm open to it. It's been an honor to work with these kids and an honor to get to know them. He became basically a scout, kind of shunted off into the background, and then his contract wasn't renewed, or he didn't accept a new contract. That part I'm not 100% sure on. Just a few players who came through his time with the U15s, Jonathan Gonzalez, who you will remember made the switch to play for Mexico. Christian Pulisic came through the early days of Hugo Perez and his camps. Hugo was a coach who was very, very well respected, and he was very well respected as a scout and his eye for talent, and especially in the Latino community. It's been baffling that he has not been brought back into U.S. Soccer here at some point. It was baffling he was let go. It's even more baffling that he was never brought back in. Well, Mexico decided, we need a USA-based scout. Who can we get? Oh, there's a very good one available right now. Hugo Perez, you're going to come work for us. Hugo Perez is now a U.S.-based scout for the Mexican Federation, and they held a boys' national ID camp in California last weekend with players that Hugo Perez had scouted. Players from all over the region. A lot of different clubs were represented, and some players that would definitely be outside of the normal, probably scouting possibilities that U.S. Soccer uses. And I'm really disappointed that U.S. Soccer allowed this to get to this point. And now you're looking at a situation where Efrain Alvarez currently plays for Mexico's U17s. Uli Lanes played for the U20 national team for the U.S. Alex Mendez played for the U20 national team for the U.S. Two young Mexican-Americans. Alvarez, young Mexican-American who is playing for Mexico. With Hugo Perez involved, with Hugo Perez building relationships with these players, young players, with their families, showing them that there's value in coming to play for Mexico, showing them that they are going to be valued by playing for Mexico, you're going to see this happen more. You're going to see this happen a whole lot more, and you have a number of good, young Mexican-American talent coming through that now is at a great risk of not playing for the United States because a person that is not just a random person in California or in the southwestern part of the United States who knows the game very well decided to go work for Mexico. This is a former U.S. men's national team player who you kicked to the curb with no explanation, who is now working for Mexico and going to identify talent that you're not. Flat out. He said, I'm doing this because I want the kids to have opportunities. It has nothing to do with me being upset with U.S. Soccer. In the end, the families are the ones who make the choice. I just want them to have more than one choice. If one national team doesn't want them, maybe the other one does. For me, the most important thing is providing opportunities. This feels like a really big waste by U.S. Soccer to allow this to happen, John.
I look at that next to last sentence. If one national team doesn't want them, maybe the other one does. And when you have someone who is as successful in finding talent, locating talent, building talent as Hugo Perez has done, I think that U.S. soccer has, I'll go ahead and use the verb. I'll say they messed up on multiple fronts. A, letting him go, not B, bringing him back, not bringing him back. C, letting the situation get to this point, regardless if Hugo Perez was involved. But for U.S. soccer to ignore a talent base and then all of a sudden have the Mexican Federation come in and sit there and say, yeah, you're valued. Yeah, you're valued to Hugo Perez. B, you're valued to kids who want to have a future possibly as national team talent. This was a swing and a miss. I mean, this was several swings and misses.
It's not even a swing and a miss because he was in your program.
Yeah. This was awful that this has happened. I mean, you shake your head at moments like this and you throw up your hands and you're going, what are you doing? And then this is where the 12-man drop
in combination with players who are telling reporters that, no, I haven't heard from U.S. Soccer.
See, that's just, ugh.
When this happens in conjunction with that, you start to worry. And when you hear things from U.S. Soccer, like, we want players who are interested in representing us. We don't, basically they're saying they don't want to have to compete for a player's allegiance. Well, you're going to lose out on a lot of players because that's not going to be the case in the real world, that everybody's going to sit back and say, yeah, go ahead and make your decision. Go ahead and figure it out. There's a recruitment process here, and there's a great deal of talent. And the flip side of this is something that U.S. Soccer should feel some pride in, but they have to figure out how to actually deal with it. Jorge Teo Hernandez, he is the head scout of the Mexican national team program. He said to Soccer America, which, get your subscription into Soccer America. They have been at the forefront of this stuff. They've been at the forefront of a lot of things involving the youth national teams and scouting talent. They are really killing it right now in this realm. If you're very interested in this, Soccer America is like $5 a month. Make the subscription. It's worth it. Hernandez told Soccer America, every year the gap between U.S. clubs' youth programs and Mexico's is closing. The structure is improving, the organization is improving, and most important is the mentality of the Mexican-American players. He said, they have a better attitude and more confidence. If you tell a Mexican-American player he's going to be the best player, he believes you. If you tell that to a Mexican player, they'll say, really? It's a cultural difference, and in the USA, you have a winning mentality. It's not easy to find that confidence in a Mexican player. The Mexican-American players have the determination, which maybe we can find here, talking about in the United States, bring to our group, and it spreads. Mexico is scouting talent at the Alianza de Football series. It's played all over the United States. Lots of great sponsorship around it. U.S. Soccer has been slow to embrace that and very slow to utilize it. Miguel Avalos from Santa Rosa, California. He was called up to Mexico's U15s when he was spotted at Sueño Alianza, which is like a talent ID contest. This is only going to increase. And it feels like U.S. Soccer is throwing their hands up and saying, well, we're just going to sit back and wait, while Mexico is being proactive. And when you look at the U17 CONCACAF Championship, both U.S. and Mexico are going to the World Cup. Starts in October. You have a lot of players on both teams who could have chosen either team. Santiago Munoz is playing for Mexico. Ricardo Pepi, FC Dallas, homegrown, is playing for the U.S. Nico Carrera, he has bounced back and forth, and he's going to play for the U.S. But he went a little bit back and forth and couldn't decide. U.S. Soccer, and I think their lack of understanding of the Latino community is a big, big problem that is only going to get worse. You're talking about a coach in Perez, who in his U14 and U15 national teams, Pulisic, Jonathan Gonzalez, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams all came through there. Now, it doesn't mean he determined all of them were good players. It doesn't mean that he made them what they are. It means that he was very influential in the youngest youth national teams in a very important time for the United States. He did a good job, obviously. And to let him go, not bring him back, and now watch him go to your rival, who is going to take some of your top players, it's a huge issue. And this on top of, reports that there's a task force about youth soccer and there's no Latino representation in it, things like that. Look, U.S. Soccer's got to get this right, or Tata Martino, the scouts with the Mexican Federation, Hugo Perez, everyone involved are going to take full advantage of it. And it's a very big disappointment for kids that are growing up. And I think my frustration with it more than anything is some of the comments that we've heard from U.S. Soccer about, well, they have to play for who they feel like they represent. You have to feel like an American to represent the U.S. These are kids who feel like they are both Mexican and American. Mm-hmm. And they have strong feelings for both. And when one is making overtures and making it obvious that they are wanted, and the other is saying, yeah, we're here, it's cool. I mean, it's not hard to make decisions, and it's disappointing that the U.S. has taken such a hands-off perspective, and I think it's going to hurt them in the long run. I hope they change their mentality. I really do, but with Perez going to Mexico, I think you're going to see some young talents follow him because he is that kind of guy. He's very good at what he does. He's very well respected, and obviously the Mexican Federation respects him. I wish the U.S. Soccer Federation respected him as much as Mexico does.
And I'm going to ask this question, and it's somewhat rhetorical. What business worth their salt waits for other businesses to determine what's good for you? I mean, if you're Coke, let's just say if you're soft drink A and you're fairly competitive in the marketplace, then soft drink B comes along and says, okay, well, we're going to do this, this, and this to help our product, to help our sales. Soft drink company A sits there and says, okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you do your thing, and we're not going to do anything to compete with that. We're just going to let you go ahead and take that piece of the marketplace and make sure that your growth expands, and we just kind of sit here with our soft drink and don't do anything in the sports drink market or the fruit-based drinks or anything like that. We don't expand our marketplace. We don't think about the future. We sit there and we're reactive about what we're doing as opposed to being proactive about what we're doing. You're showing value, and now I'm drifting back into the discussion with Mexico and the USMNT. You're showing value to folks. What makes someone feel valued? Someone coming up to them and sitting there saying, yeah, we like what you're doing. We're interested in you. We want you to succeed. When you have someone sitting on their hands, not doing that, not reaching out to certain parts of the community, not sitting there and saying, okay, yes, you are a valued part of this community. I think you deserve your own fate at this point.
I really hope it's a wake-up call. I'm not very optimistic of it being one, at least in the short term. It will be one in the long term because I think it's going to be successful for Mexico, and I hope that U.S. Soccer realizes that the soccer community in the United States is a very multicultural one, and one that you have to be a little more adept at speaking to families and kids and potential players and communities that are different and maybe think about the game in a different way and not be so close-minded to that. So I hope U.S. Soccer can get this right. they've really gotten it wrong, and this is a big loss when it comes to Hugo Perez moving over to the Mexican Federation, because you're only going to see more talent go to Mexico now. Let's take a break. If you have any thoughts on it, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, October 1st edition. Lots of Tuesday thoughts from us, lots of Tuesday thoughts from you. Let's get the conversation going, John.
Ricky Ricardo, after hearing that last segment, says, hearing this latest news shows me U.S. soccer doesn't want to be great.
I disagree. I think they don't know how to be great. I think they do want to be great. I just don't think they understand what it takes to do that. And I don't know if they understand truly what resources they have available in their own backyard and value them, because it's frustrating when on one side all you hear is U.S. youth soccer player development is awful, it's garbage, kids should go to Europe as fast as they can, you're never going to become a professional here. And then Mexico is looking over it like, hey, we can have some great talent that's produced by American clubs, and they can benefit our program. When the overriding idea from a lot of influencers in U.S. soccer is that it's bad, but then Mexico says, no, it's actually really good, and we're going to take talent that's developed there, there's something wrong, right? Like, somebody's missing something. Either Mexico is overvaluing U.S. youth clubs player development, or people in the U.S. are undervaluing their own youth development, which makes no sense, but that's kind of how it feels. Now, some of these influencers are not involved in any big ways in U.S. soccer, and they're talking a lot, but that's the conversation. That's the conversation, and it's disappointing because U.S. youth soccer has made great strides. The amount of players that are being developed, far greater than it was 10 years ago. I mean, it's not even close. And a lot of it is outside of stuff you're not going to learn by going to practice 3 times a week. It's stuff that you're going to learn from watching the game and living the game and breathing the game. And now that you have so many more MLS clubs and quality of play and all that, that has a huge impact. And it's had a great impact on American soccer. It's good. Things are moving in the right direction. But these are the kinds of moves letting a Hugo Perez, not truly embracing the Latino community. These are the kinds of moves that hold it back from that progress that is trying to carry it forward. And that's where I just don't get it.
Okay, Tofka went for a while here.
Oh, boy.
He's fired up. U.S. soccer bigotry is inexcusable. I'm so sick of watching the Federation squander the talent and scoop up profit. I'm really close to done. Total boycott of the national team. Talk me off the ledge.
Hold that thought. I am not going to say it's bigotry because I don't know that. And I think that's a very strong thing to say without knowing. I think it's incompetence. More than anything, I think it's incompetence. If it's something else, that has not been proven as of yet. So I'm going to take a step back from that one. It doesn't do the program or the kids or any of it any good to boycott it. I don't think that helps. I think there are major issues that U.S. Soccer needs to address. Now, don't go if you can't afford buying a ticket to a U.S. men's national team game because they're stupid expensive.
Yeah, price point's another issue.
That's a different conversation. But boycotting it, not paying attention to it, no, that's not going to change it. That's not going to change anything. I disagree with that mentality. It's just like we talked about on soccer over there about the racism in European soccer and specifically in Serie A. I hate it when I hear people say that, well, I'll never watch Serie A, I'm not going to pay any attention to it, I'm done with it. It's a great league, and there's great soccer in it. And if you're following the game, doesn't mean you have to watch it every week, but to ignore it doesn't help you, and it doesn't get rid of the issue. I have talked about that a lot, and I have shared a lot of tweets about it because I want to see it change. I don't want to sit back and allow it to be that way. So people like in U.S. soccer, and whether that's coaches, whether that's administrators, whether that's fans, everybody has a voice. Now, does it take more time sometimes to make these big, bold changes at levels that are above you? Yeah, absolutely. But ignoring it and boycotting it and taking it out of your life
doesn't make it go away.
It doesn't. It's only going to stay. So this is something that I want to see change. I've seen too many talented players not get an opportunity. I've seen too many talented players decide not to play for the U.S. when you don't know if they would have. You don't know what the situation would have been because they really wasn't handled the correct way. I think there's so many things that U.S. Soccer can do better, and it's not about just spending a boatload of money. I think a lot of times people get hung up on that, well, they've got all this money in reserve. Well, you have to have money in reserve. You have to have, if you're a nonprofit, you have to have money in reserve because you can't guarantee your profits coming in. It's a different situation. You've got to have reserve funds. Just blowing the reserve fund doesn't change everything because throwing money at a problem doesn't necessarily solve it. I want to see this change. I want to see U.S. Soccer realize that it's not 1995 anymore. It's not 2005 anymore. It's not 2015 anymore. There are so many more opportunities and things that they can do that would benefit the youth national team programs, that would benefit the national team programs, that would bring in more money in the long run because you have better programs that you're selling. There's so many more resources now than there were. That has to be realized. And the Latino community is a huge resource in the United States that feels disenfranchised from the United States Soccer Federation. What is the most viewed league in the United States?
Liga MX.
Yep. That would lead you to believe that
here comes
there
logic.
Are soccer consumers in the United States that have an affinity for Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It's understandable. But when you look at the ratings for U.S. soccer matches, and this past summer, U.S. women's soccer matches in Spanish language, they are very good. It is not a situation that I think some people still think it is, that people who have lived here for a generation or two or three or more don't want to be part of the U.S. soccer culture. They do. They're going to Major League Soccer matches. They're going to USL Championship matches. They're watching the national team. They're cheering on the national team. They're watching the women's national team. It feels like U.S. soccer doesn't realize that they're here saying, we want to be fans and supporters of this. Come say hi. That's the problem I've got with it. It's U.S. soccer's got to get with the times.
Mm-hmm. And the second paragraph from Tofkin. U.S. soccer can claim, quote, we want players who unquestionably want to play for U.S. soccer and no other, end quote. But if the Federation seems to never communicate with players playing for late-stage U.S. youth teams, there's a difference between we don't want to recruit and being neglectful and tone-deaf.
Completely agreed. And stop with this we don't want to recruit nonsense. Recruit. So I'm assuming that according to U.S. Soccer, Kirby Smart should just sit back and say, well, if you want to go play for Alabama, you go play for Alabama. We don't want you. Yeah, that's how it's going to work. Okay, sure.
Exactly.
Because
that was I guess that's a better point than my soda point than the previous segment.
It takes the idea that these players don't love both countries. And that's what drives me insane. It's so wrong. It's just so incorrect and out of touch. You're talking about kids who, born in the United States, grew up in the United States. They might be a Chicago Fire fan. They might be an LA Galaxy fan. They might have jumped over to LAFC alongside being a Chivas fan. Mm-hmm. Go back to Campeones Cup. How many people did you see in the Gulch that had a Club America kit on and had an Atlanta United bumper sticker on their car?
Uh-huh.
How many people did you see with an Atlanta United hat and a Club America kit? It's okay for that to happen, folks. And it's mind-blowing that U.S. Soccer doesn't understand that. Just saying back, well, you figure out who you want to play for and come let us know. No, they want to play for both. They love both. You've got to sell them on playing for you. Because the other side is. Because they understand that it's not just, well, I feel this way. Well, I don't feel that way. No, they love both. And they have to pick one. And you have to give them a reason to pick your side. So silly. And it's such a huge loss for U.S. soccer. We could talk about it all day. I'm sure we'll probably get into some more of it, but we've got some other things to touch on in hour number 2. We're going to take a quick break to reset. We'll be back, continuing the U.S.-Mexico conversation a little bit. Matias Almeyda. What might be next for Senor Almeida? We'll talk about it right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back, Soccer Down Here. Hour number 2, October 1st, Tuesday Thoughts. Share your Tuesday thoughts with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Soccer Over There will be live on a rare Tuesday edition, 6 o'clock. We're going to take you all the way up to the kickoff of River Plate y Boca Juniors from El Monumental.
I've heard of them.
In Buenos Aires, the first leg of the Copa Libertadores semifinal. It is the Superclsico. It is not quite the Superclsico of all Superclasicos. That was last time around in the Copa Libertadores final. The last time that the final, well, it ended up there. It didn't start there. It's the last time that the final was over 2 legs. That was the Superclasico of all Superclasicos. This is a big Superclasico. And the first leg is tonight. It's on BN Sports. We're going to be watching it over at the Brewhouse Cafe. We're going to do Soccer Over There from there, starting at 6 o'clock. Come hang out with us. Watch the game with us. Talk Champions League today. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into the updates from the leagues over the weekend as well. But we're going to get you set for some big South American Copa Libertadores action. This is, as we said last year, this tournament is just a great one to watch. It's the South American Champions League, if you don't know the Libertadores. And when you get to this stage of the tournament, the passion, the atmosphere, the vibe in the stadiums, the intensity of the matches, it's unbelievable. And it's so much fun to watch. You don't have to have a huge rooting interest. If you're not a River or a Boca person, it still should be a great spectacle to come out and watch. So we'll see you at the Brewhouse tonight, or you'll hear us on the SDH app, on soccerdownhere.net, or on Spreaker. All right. Matias Almeyda, experience with River Plate. He knows what the Superclasico is all about.
I've heard of him.
He knows what Major League Soccer is all about. Not exactly happy about parts of it. San Jose Earthquakes have had some bad luck as of late, but they still have a shot to play their way into the postseason. Almeida said this, and obviously it's translated from Spanish, but he said, I told them that if on the first day of preseason, if they were to have brought in a contract where they said we would have had a chance to make the playoffs on the last game, we all would have signed that contract. This team has changed a lot, so I can't just stick with if we get in or not. I stick with something a lot deeper. A team that had 21 points last year, and with 85% of the same players, we tried to be protagonists and competitive. They are and they were throughout the season. There's a reality that some teams play better than us and are better than us. But there's another reality that you cannot hide, which is the improvement of this team. Completely and utterly agree. The Quakes,
no doubt,
have done something special this year, and it's not getting talked about a ton because of the way they're finishing right now, and also because LAFC has done something very special this year too. Minnesota has done something very special this year. Atlanta United's done something very special this year. There's lots of great stories in Major League Soccer this year. But the Quakes are absolutely one of them. Now, they've had some decisions go against them as of late. Some very strange decisions. Some bad luck. Some iffy referee decisions. VAR has gotten involved. Strange. Almeida had a couple things to say about that. He said, if they foul Salinas, talking about Shea Salinas, it should be judged in the same way as if they fouled Vela. And if they foul Wondolowski, the player is judged as if he was Ibrahimovic. The day that there is real equality, we will have better football. Many of us risk our careers to come to this league. Some are content and others are losing hope. We've talked about superstar calls, and we've talked about it from the perspective of Atlanta United for a few years now. I mean, it happens. It's felt like Miguel Almiron didn't get calls that he necessarily deserved. Joseph Martinez has at times not gotten calls. Pity Martinez, for some reason this year, referees just automatically look at him and tell him to get up even when there's contact. Lots of contact. Ezequiel Barco, I think, has finally started to get calls this season a little bit more. But that's a really important statement at the end. Many of us risk our careers to come to this league. Some are content and others are losing hope. He went on a little bit further. He said, I met first with quality directors, GMs, owners, whatever, everybody that works here. There's few times I've seen that in football. I feel honored being in this place, but I have a lot of impotence with what has happened throughout the season. I'm not saying this as a justification. I'm saying this as a warning because we all have our pride. We all dedicate passion, time, and love to this. Since I've been living here, on Wednesday, my father's having surgery again. He's 8,000 kilometers away. He had surgery 3 months ago. My work is here. My respect is here. Toward the press, the refs, the league, the directors, the club that signed me, I'm not feeling the same treatment. The reason why this is important is in Monterrey, Rayados fired Diego Alonso, who won the CONCACAF Champions League a few months ago, who would be preparing Rayados for the Club World Cup at the end of the year. He's not going to be doing that anymore. They lost 2-0 to Tigres, crosstown rivals, on the weekend. They've lost more games than they've won in the current season in Liga MX. Matias Almeyda has been reported as a possible candidate for Monterrey. There's a couple different ways to go with this, and I want to start just with the basics of Monterrey is a massive club. It's a bigger club than the San Jose Earthquakes. It's a bigger club than any club in MLS when you talk about the value of the player roster, the amount of money they're spending. They're huge. And if they decide that Almeida is who they want, Almeida has had success in Mexico with Chivas. If they decide that Almeida is who they want, they're going to be able to spend more than the San Jose Earthquakes could to keep him. They're going to be able to offer things that the Earthquakes can't. It would be a shame to see Almeida, who has brought, I think, a different type of game, a different type of tactical plan, and for me, a different type of passion, which I love, to this league. I think he's made the league a better place, and I'd hate to see him leave after a year. Rayados is a tough club to turn down if he becomes the main candidate.
There's another part of this that I'm looking at as part of this picture, where his father's 8,000 kilometers away. And having had recent surgery, and I know that the rest of the quote is work is here, respect is here, and all of that. But family is as strong, if not a stronger pull sometimes. Sometimes it's not necessarily the job that's being offered, but the opportunity to go home with a family situation. So I'm adding that.
But it's not going home. Monterrey's not going home. It's a little closer, but you're talking about Argentina. You know, like that. I think that part is more about I'm sacrificing to be here.
Yeah,
I'm giving up things to be here. But Monterrey doesn't change that, John. That's what I'm trying to say. Like that.
All right.
It doesn't. His home is not Monterrey. He's not going home. That's not the issue. His family's in Argentina. Going to Mexico cuts off an hour from a flight, maybe 2 hours. It doesn't change it dramatically. The problem is when you're giving up that and you feel like you're not getting the same respect that you are giving to the league because referee decisions, he mentioned that he's been sent off more than some players and he hasn't gotten explanations on it. He feels like some players are getting favored over others. Big names are getting favored over his players, which are not big names. And he feels like, I think he's not getting the respect when he mentions, his team and the season they've had and, the playing the way that they are, and that's a big part of it. They're not coming in and saying, well, we're not good enough, so we're going to sit back and defend and bunker. They're being protagonists. All of that rolled into a package of, I want to be here. I respect the people that brought me in here. I respect the people that I'm interacting with. But I'm sacrificing a lot. When he says many of us risk our careers, that's big. His career is not going to be over by coming to MLS, but MLS is not seen as big of a league as Liga MX in Latin America. Not yet. It's getting there, but not yet. He made the decision to come here, and he's made the league a better place, I think. I think he's had a great season with San Jose. But if you're not getting that back, if you're not getting that love back, that respect back, you're going to go. And you're going to leave. Yep. And you're going to go to, again, a club in Liga MX who's not a typical club in Liga MX. They spend more than everybody else, and they have higher expectations. That's why Diego Alonso lost his job. So it's not a guarantee of being there for a long time if Almeida goes to Rayados. But he feels like he would get that respect, and he wouldn't have the treatment that he doesn't feel is fair. The part about his father is wrapped into the overall package of, look, it's not easy for me to be here. I just want to get that same treatment back. He's not feeling the same treatment that he feels like he respects others. He doesn't feel like he's getting that same. I don't know if there's an easy answer to it, because you could be getting all of that, and I think Rayados could still come in and swoop and offer something that he has to take.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an ambitious manager. This is not a manager who's just out there because his playing career ended and he wants to do something. This is a guy who has very passionate thoughts about the way the game should be played. I loved the things he says about the way he views the game and the way he wants his teams to play with the joy of a child and the type of soccer that he enjoys, and he wants it to put a smile on people's face because it's free and it's open and it's exciting and it's all of these things that you love about the game. I love that from a manager in this league because I don't think that happens enough. And I would hate
refreshing
to see him leave.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's refreshing to see this kind of approach. And I mean, there are those of us who watched Liga MX and we saw what Almeida did, and the fact that San Jose brought him here. And I'm looking at the series of quotes and all the paragraphs and everything that we talked about in this particular segment. Frankly, I'm not all that optimistic about him staying because of all this. I would love for him to. But with all of this stuff that is mounting up here, my gut tells me that if the offer is there, he's going to go, and that's disappointing for MLS. And for me, then my next question is at the beginning of all this discussion would be about Diego Alonso and wanting to see him in MLS as a coach now.
Yeah, I would really like to see Diego Alonso in the league as a coach. I think he did good work at Monterrey, and I'm sure people will hear that and say, well, why did he get fired? The Mexican league, and I think the leagues that operate on the Apertura Clausura type of season, you think that there's a short leash on managers in MLS. You think there's a short leash on managers or coaches in American sports. Go to a league that has that type of model. Mm-hmm. Because you're talking about 2 championships a year. You have a bad championship like this season, and they didn't win the league in the early half of the season either, the early half of the year. So they didn't win that league. They did win CONCACAF. But now you go into this half of the season, and it's a tough road, and you lost to your big rivals. That leash, there's no leash. It's gone. And that's the problem, is that you get into a very quick trigger type of mentality in these clubs, and it's hard to develop for the long term. And in a club like Rayados, I mean, they have so much money, they can go get whoever they want. They can go and say, all right, it's not working with Alonso, let's go get the next big manager out there available and pay them a lot of money to come in and take a superstar set of players and go win things. And for Almeida, if he takes it, I mean, let's say, and I think this does play into it, I don't think it changes the way he feels about coming here, but let's say that they don't make it. Let's say that they lose in Portland. Let's say that they get knocked out. Then he's available. Now, he's under contract, and you're going to have to deal with all that, and Monterrey can pay whatever money they need to pay. But then he can go to Monterrey straight away, and then he would get to manage in the Club World Cup this year. And he did not get to do that with Chivas because he had left Chivas before they went to the Club World Cup. So that can be a pull. The pull of going to a club like Monterrey and having the resources that they have. I mean, it's hard to say no. And when you're feeling aggrieved at things in your current environment, and a big suitor that would be a big suitor even if you were exceedingly happy in your current environment, if Monterrey comes calling, it's tough to say no to them anyway. But if you're aggrieved at where you're at, it makes it really easy to say, yep, that's where I want to go. Now, look, Monterrey's going to have a lot of different candidates. It's not a definite that Almeida is who they end up choosing. You know, he's not the only one. So it's not a foregone conclusion that this is where it goes. But you're going to have a number of different possibilities, and Almeida should be one of them. I'd be shocked if he's not. We'll see what happens, but I would hate to see him leave this league this quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's been for me, it's just been cool to have a manager come up from Liga MX and bring his style, bring his enthusiasm. I mean, when he's at the big industrial sized grill cooking for players and having fun, and you see it in his face as he's sitting there turning meat over and all this kind of stuff. I mean, how can you not enjoy seeing someone like that come into this league, bring his passion, bring his love, spread it to his players in a situation where a lot of us coming into the year, we're sitting there going, man, San Jose, I don't know. They're not going to be anywhere close to competing for anything. And for me, honestly, if LAFC hadn't done what they had been doing, Almeida would be my vote for Coach of the Year, hands down, with what he's been able to do with the guys that were there. And 85%, 17 out of 20, if you take 85%, 17 out of 20 players on San Jose's roster, same dudes, and he was able to do what he did. I mean, how can you not, A, appreciate that, B, respect that, and C, understand where he's coming from with all the things that he's been saying?
According to TUDN, the former Univision Deportes, Almeida is a candidate, and I don't know if he is the primary candidate, but he is a candidate. Two other options, according to TUDN, are Hugo Sanchez and Walter Erviti. Both, obviously, Hugo Sanchez is one of the most respected figures in Mexican soccer ever, but two very respected managers who have kind of cycled through different clubs. Almeida's only worked for Chivas in Mexico. Just to show you the mentality of Rayados fans, there's a great English language Rayados podcast and Twitter account to follow called Rayados90, spelled out Ninety. And they have changed their Twitter name to Portland Timbers fan account. And they tweeted out when this broke, proud Portland Timbers fan since this morning, yesterday. So there's a lot of movement in the Monterrey universe about Almeida to Monterrey and a lot of excitement about it. Ariel Holan, who was formerly at Independiente, managed them to a Sudamericana title, managed Ezequiel Barco there. He is also available, and his name has come up. He has not worked in Mexico before. So keep an eye on this, because if there's a release clause, I think he signed a 3-year deal with the Earthquakes, If there's a release clause, if there's a bag of money or juice boxes or Halloween candy that needs to be given to San Jose to get Almeida out of his contract, Monterrey's got that and more, and they'll do it if that's who they want. So this is something to keep an eye on, and I think if San Jose gets knocked out of the postseason, it's more likely than if they get in because the timing would work so well for Monterrey's side of it. If they get into the postseason, that's another couple weeks. Say they win a first-round game in the postseason, then you're going even further. I think Monterrey has to make a move before then. But if they're knocked out this weekend, Monterrey can hang on for a week and see what's going on. I think it could come down to that. So yeah. Rayados 90 is pulling for the Portland Timbers. And I hate to say this, but if you enjoy Matias Almeyda in this league, you'd really like to see San Jose get into the postseason because I think it makes it harder for him to leave.
Yep. And I mean, it's all of this news. It's something to pay attention to. But yeah, Rayados 90, full credit for the change in the name short term.
Yeah. This is going to be a very, very intriguing one to keep an eye on as we go. Let's take a break. We'll get into more of your Tuesday thoughts on Matias Almeyda, on Hugo Sanchez, on Hugo Perez, on all of the things that are bubbling up in the American soccer universe and landscape right now. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. October 1 on your calendar.
1.
It's a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Lots of thoughts out there. We've given you lots of thoughts today. So share your thoughts with us at Soccer Down here on Twitter. Let us know what you're thinking about some of these different things or anything else that's on your mind on a Tuesday. It's fair game. You can take the conversation wherever you want. Let's see where it goes.
Tafka, gotta love Almeida. I really hope he stays, but proud to hear him speak up in a way calmer and more mature than Petke. It is harder to dismiss when it's given in such earnest.
Absolutely. And that's a key because, look, the refereeing needs to get better. I think that's obvious. It needs to get better in every league around the world. Let's not pretend that only in Major League Soccer are referees not at the level that everyone would hope. It's worldwide. The Premier League talks about referees on a daily basis.
Yep.
And they're the greatest. So, it happens everywhere. Drop the whole, it only happens here. Drop that.
Nope.
That doesn't help the conversation. It needs to get better. It's something that Pro and U.S. Soccer and MLS and USL all need to work together on to develop referees in a better way, to make it a priority, to identify young referees. We'll get into it probably tomorrow, maybe a little bit at the end of the show, depending on where conversations go. Howard Webb spoke about the future of VAR at a press conference in Montreal over the weekend. I missed it. I would have actually liked to have gone to that. Just looking at what VAR can do going forward to be better. I do think what Almeida said about some players getting calls that other players don't, I think that happens in this league. I think it happens in a lot of leagues. Yeah. But I think it happens in this league in a pretty big way. And it gets frustrating. I think that and this is a little bit more of a very big, broad picture when it comes to the American soccer mentality that does affect how referees see the game. It affects how coaches see the game. It affects how pundits see the game. I don't think there's enough respect for skilled players in player identification. I don't think there's enough respect for skilled players from referees. I think that skilled players on the ball get whacked and hit too many times and get kicked out of games. And it's just accepted. They should be tougher. They shouldn't go down. They should stay on their feet, and all the nonsense about that stuff. Yeah, you go try to actually do something with the ball instead of just kick it as far away as you can and go run. And then you start getting kicked in the ankles and getting studs up challenges to your shins and your calves, and see how you're feeling about things.
Or like what happened to Dos Santos over the weekend.
Oh, if you haven't seen that, don't look at the pictures, because good grief, that'll turn your stomach a little bit. Skilled players should be protected far more than they are. And teams that try to play soccer as opposed to try to kick other teams off the park, I think they should be protected more. It's not going against the laws of the game. It's just using the laws of the game to call the game. I've always had that mentality, and I think here there is a mentality about, no, they shouldn't be protected. I disagree with that. I hope that the league has a little bit of a think about what kinds of soccer and what points of emphasis they want in the way games are called. Because what Almeida says about people risking their careers, you're going to get decisions when it comes down to, I've got an offer on the table from River Plate. I've got an offer on the table from Monterrey. I've got an offer on the table from the LA Galaxy. And you're a skilled player, and you look at it, and you're like, man, if I go to MLS, like I hear these things. I don't know if I want to go play in that league. It might be too physical. It might be physical in a different way. I might not get protected. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go play in a league, in a culture that I understand a little bit more, and I'm a little more comfortable in. That's not a good thing for the league, for that to be a bit of a reputation, and I hope it changes. So it's just when it gets to points of emphasis. You know, we see it in the NFL and the NBA all the time, where you come into a season and the league kind of has some ideas, like, we want to watch this more. We want to focus on this more. I hope that MLS gets to that point and pushes a little bit more and says, you know what, we want skilled players to be comfortable here. We want skilled players to, and we want the game to be called so they are protected. And we want it to be called evenly. And I hope that you can start pushing on this. And then just the big picture that we always say, you know, better development of referees, bigger, deeper pool, because you're adding professional teams every year. You're adding more games. You need more referees. It's not easy. It's a very tough job. It's a very difficult job. Any criticism I have of referees is not to say that it's an easy job. It's incredibly difficult. I want to see them be given more resources and the best training possible to be the best referees they can be, because it will improve the product.
Jorge B. is asking for predictions for El Superclsico. He says it's on his bucket list to one day watch Boca play in La Bombonera. The atmosphere looks insane. Hashtag Mad Max. Hashtag sorry PT Boca wins.
Ooh, well, Boca's been the better team this season. They are both through 8 matches played in the Superliga in Argentina, Boca, 5 wins, 3 draws. They have not lost. They've only conceded 1 goal in league play in the current season. River, they're in 7th place, 14 points, 4 points back, 4-2-2. They've scored 17 goals, which is almost double what Boca has scored, and they've conceded 5. River and Boca both played mostly reserves on the weekend. River won, Boca drew. Boca, from the first Superclsico of the season in league play, where it finished scoreless, Boca, to me, kind of showed a little bit of their mentality. And I think those numbers kind of back it up when you look at very difficult team to beat. Gustavo Alfaro is their manager. He took over from Guillermo Barros Escalotto. This is the biggest club he's ever been at. He's been at San Lorenzo. He's been at Huracan. He's been at Rosario Central. But he hasn't been with one of the big clubs. The Grandes in Argentina, there's 5. San Lorenzo is considered 1. There's a different level of grande when we're talking about Boca and River. When you come from a smaller club, a lot of times I think you come in with the mentality of we have to be defensive here in these big games, because that's how smaller clubs generally have to be. They can't be as wide open as a big team can in big games. Boca appears to be that type of mentality. Okay, they're playing River. They're going to keep it tight. You win 1-0 on aggregate. Good. Cool. Go through. Boca's struggled to beat River in these moments. It's River who won the Libertadores last year. It's River who has 2 Libertadores in the last 5 years. Boca doesn't have one. Boca's won the league. River struggled in the league play. But it's been River who has come out big in continental competition. It's a little bit of that Liverpool-Manchester City dynamic where it's like Liverpool can't win the league, but they win Champions League.
Yeah.
That's River. Boca's winning the league, but they're struggling when it comes to the Libertadores. And they want Libertadores in a bad way. I worry about Boca from the perspective of these are the biggest games Alfaro's ever been involved in. He appears to be very defensive. That first Superclsico, I was a little surprised at how defensive they were. It was at River, which you do have to keep in mind, and River has a ton of firepower. Tonight's at River. I think you're going to see Boca sit deep and want to get out of there with zeros on the board. River's going to have to break them down, especially in the home leg. Can they do it? We'll find out tonight.
Couple of national team thoughts. First from Bartimus Prime. In the midst of all this manager/USSF talk, I want to put this obligatory statement out there. Hashtag Berhalter out. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. Hashtag what has he ever won. Hashtag MLS failing up.
I wouldn't say he failed at MLS. I think that's harsh. It's a tough one. Does winning MLS Cup automatically make you a better manager? Not necessarily. Berhalter had success in Columbus. I think it's unfair to say that he didn't. And I think he's very well respected. I still have some serious questions about his capital T, capital S, trademarked the system, working with a national team. I think he's overdoing it a little bit. But I think he's pulling back from that too, which is good. He's going to have to. You don't have the same situation that you do at a club. That part's good. This isn't the issues that we're talking about with the national team aren't Berhalter's making. They've been there and they're not new. It was Klinsmann who was in charge, and Klinsmann had talked a lot about the Latino community, and then he ran Hugo Perez from the program. And then he didn't really bring in many of the Mexican-American players. Some, but he kind of got away from that over his time in charge. So it's not new. It's not unique to Berhalter. And I think the issues on the youth side are far bigger than the national team manager. I don't want to run away from that just yet in terms of Berhalter. I think if you're U.S. Soccer, you've made your bed there, and you kind of got to go with it for now. He hasn't done anything to be let go yet. I said going into Gold Cup, and some people wanted to argue about it, said that it wasn't a fair expectation. I said they had to get to the final. They did. They weren't going to beat Mexico. They got to the final. All right. That's a step in the right direction. Now you got to continue to make steps, though. And you have CONCACAF Nations League coming up. That's the next bar. You're playing Canada. You're playing Cuba in qualifiers, 2 in October, 2 in November. You should go 4-0. And, yes, I think it's fair to ask for a little bit of style in these wins, too. That expectation is okay. That's the next bar for Greg Berhalter. If he loses a game to Canada or Cuba in CONCACAF Nations League, that's a problem. That's a big problem. If he wins all 4, but he does it in a very boring way, and they win 1-0 against Cuba in 2 games, that's a problem too. There need to be some expectations, and they need to continue to escalate. You got to see progress.
Tafka wants to know, he wonders how much good we could do by loaning Darren Eales to U.S. Soccer and then to each and every lagging MLS club. Let him smack some people around, then bring him back.
No. Not loaning him anywhere. But if you want to share some best practices, I'm cool with that. And that stuff is happening. I think you're seeing the top clubs in the league are not afraid to do that. Because, just like we said with U.S. Soccer about expectations, look, different clubs have different identities, different expectations. You can share some best practices. If Kansas City sees the Golden Spike tradition, for example, let's just use that as an example here, and they're like, that's really good. I like that. The fans are engaged. It's really cool. They get a chance to see the players up close on game day. Nobody's really doing that. That's really cool. Let's do that. They're obviously not going to do a Golden Spike because it doesn't fit the Sporting Kansas City brand or identity. They're going to do their take on it.
Steak? They're going to cook a steak?
No. We're not brainstorming it. No. We're just saying they're going to do their own version of it. They don't have time to cook. No, they don't have time to do all that, John. Barbecue takes time. You know this. They're going to do their own version of that. They're going to take it and spin it. That's what you do when you learn from best practices. That's good. It's a good thing. That's what the best clubs in MLS are doing. If you want to see a club that is hasn't learned, but maybe is finally, go read the article over at The Athletic from Sam Stejkal about the Montreal Impact that came out yesterday.
Yes.
Really good piece about their identity and lack thereof and how Montreal should be a top club in this league, but because they've been poorly managed, they have not done that. They never really truly developed out of the NASL, formerly USL, minor league, smaller division type of model. They never grew up. And it shows. I think they're starting to realize that's not going to work, and it feels like this past year they've started to make some of the right decisions, and they did let go of Remy Gard rather quickly, but I don't know where things were truly going under Gard either, so maybe it was the right play. Who knows? But that's a club that hasn't learned from best practices. Others have, and you see it, and the top clubs are going to continue to do that. So, no, don't loan Darren out to other places to go somewhere else and work for a while, but share best practices. And hopefully people learn from them. I think that's how you get real, true change.
Shiva wants to know if we know who's getting called up from Atlanta United during the FIFA break.
Haven't seen anything yet.
Justin Miram turned it down.
Reportedly.
Yes.
That wasn't from the Iraqi Federation. That was from a site that covers Iraqi soccer. That he is not going to go join Iraq for games because of the proximity to the game this weekend and also upcoming playoff match. So that was reported but not confirmed by Merrim, Atlanta United, or the Iraqi national team. So keep that in mind. Haven't heard about the U.S. roster for the Canada and Cuba matches coming up. There's possibility of Brad Guzan, Miles Robinson being in the mix there. There's also the possibility of them not going because of where Atlanta is with playoffs coming up. That's what makes it really tricky. I don't think there's anybody else that would fall into official competition because there is a difference between friendlies. You can turn those down. The club can say no. And official competitions like CONCACAF Nations League. If they're called up, they got to go unless the player then says, I'm not going, and then they might not get called back, and then that's a huge issue. The club can't refuse a call-up for an official competition. So I haven't seen anything, and I haven't seen an update on when the U.S. roster would be announced as of yet.
Drew Gano on Atlanta United says, with low energy at New York and unable to produce a win in Montreal, sure seems like Atlanta's slumping at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I do think Montreal was a step in the right direction, though. I really do, because they looked more secure defensively. You had an individual mistake hurt you, but as a team, you looked far more secure defensively. You also played these two games without Joseph Martinez, and that is getting lost in the backwash a little bit.
The first one without Ezequiel Barco.
Yeah, that has a huge impact. So I think you get into the postseason and you get Joseph Martinez coming out of the tunnel, things look a little different. I really do. And if you can take the improved defensive security that you saw in Montreal, add Joseph Martinez, add Ezequiel Barco to that mix for game one of the postseason, you're in a very different spot. But this upcoming MLS playoffs feels the most wide open that I have ever remembered the postseason being. Part of it's the format. Part of it is the current form of a lot of teams. I mean, New York City, you would have probably put in the driver's seat in the Eastern Conference. They went to Gillette and lost 2-0. Philadelphia would have been in that driver's seat for a while. They've had some losses that have been a little surprising. They looked gassed against Columbus. So that's where maybe, possibly, not chartering anything during that crazy week that they had with travel might have taken its toll a little bit. Team didn't look like it had anything in their legs. Atlanta, you've played 43 games. It adds up. And you've had injuries to deal with, and you don't have Joseph Martinez right now. So that shows. Okay, that's just the East. The next couple teams in the East, DC and New York Red Bulls, haven't exactly looked great as of late, whereas the bottom two teams in the East haven't lost since August 3rd. A lot of draws, but postseason, that takes you to extra time and penalties. The West, you would have said LAFC was a no-brainer. They've only won one of their last 6.
Yeah, ask Minnesota about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a done deal yet. So we had the comment yesterday that everybody has a chance. I'm not quite going to go there, but I'd say half the field out of the 14 teams that are in have a legitimate shot at winning MLS Cup.
Chris Hutchison, back to our Friday discussion. This Friday, upcoming, swapping out Halloween candy for juice boxes.
Okay.
Says that candy corn would be the equivalent of counterfeit currency.
Could be. I don't like candy corn. Stuff's gross.
I don't either. Yeah.
It's just not good.
And then especially if you pick the wrong drink and you're trying to have it as a snack, and it doesn't blend well.
Well, you don't have candy corn as a snack. That's where you screwed up. Like, that's just bad. You just don't even mess with it. You leave it in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, I've just not been a fan of that whole thing. Did you see the BR football cartoon?
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen that we've been tagged in it. I've not had a chance to watch it yet. It's their Champions League cartoon. They brought it back for another season.
And apparently Brad Guzan is included in it, according to Ricky Ricardo.
Okay.
And Ricky says, not sure if y'all have followed these, but the Guzan, yep, there he is right there. 30 seconds in. Not sure if y'all have followed these, but the Guzan inclusion had me cracking up and is also another sign that the world has noticed Atlanta. He's the last celeb. He's the last soccer-playing celeb in the Open.
Absolutely, the world has noticed Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta United is known worldwide as well as any club in Major League Soccer. And they've turned a lot of heads in a very short period of time. It's very cool to see. I mean, and for some people who want to make shots because the team that they're following with their job is not doing so well right now, and they want to take shots for some inexplicable reason when they should be talking about a lot of things to do with their normal job, and I think you know who I'm talking about. That team that person follows does not get the worldwide attention and put Atlanta on the map worldwide like the other team that plays in the same building as that team that the other person follows. And I know you know who I'm talking about by now. And we're not going to talk about his name because that's what he wants. Because for some reason, it has gotten to that point with this particular person. And it is very sad that this is going on. But the most important part about it, no matter what other people want to say and term things, is that Major League Soccer is not a minor league. And Atlanta United is not part of a minor league. Because Atlanta United puts Atlanta on the map in the world sporting conversation more than any other team in the city. And that's pretty amazing at this point. That's pretty wild to think about, that people around the globe are sitting there thinking about Atlanta, Georgia, because of a team that wears red and black stripes, that has won things and maybe redefined how people think about American soccer in a very short period of time. So when you see stupid takes from people who are feeling very bad about, I guess, their current situation and what they have to write about and what they have to talk about, remember those things and then just point and laugh and move on.
Then Ricky also says, not sure if it's been mentioned or talked about, but I'm interested to know at Longshoe's thoughts on the Diego Maradona HBO documentary trailer.
Oh, that's my thoughts.
Yes.
It's unfortunate that the Libertadores match coincides with the premiere on HBO because I would have watched it tonight live. I will watch it this week, probably Wednesday night, if not Wednesday night.
HBO's getting a man's money.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to happen. It has to because it's Maradona. The story around it's crazy. I guess a lot of this footage was recorded for a potential documentary a long time ago that never saw the light of day, and then became available, and Maradona signed off on it, but Maradona hasn't watched the documentary. The filmmakers have tried to get him to watch it. He has chosen not to. It's just the weirdest of situations with this guy. I mean, he, in my mind, at his peak, was the greatest player to ever play the game. His peak was far shorter than it should have been because he had no individual self-control about how to live a normal life. And he didn't really have the background to know how to live a normal life. And that does factor into it. It's the ultimate story of a kid from the barrio who becomes the greatest player in the world and then doesn't know how to handle being the greatest player in the world. And things fall apart. And then you get the mafia involved, which doesn't make it any easier to live a normal life. So, But some of the scenes I've seen from this trailer, I think it's the one that he is walking out of the dugout at the stadium in Napoli as he's being introduced. Hasn't even played for the team yet. The madness when he walks out of that tunnel. I think they're shooting it from behind. Like it's such an unbelievable shot to just capture what his life was like in Naples. You know, he didn't go to a massive club at this point. He'd went to Barcelona from Argentina. He started at a small club, Argentinos Juniors. The Argentine government basically had to intervene to keep him in the country and help him go to Boca, because Boca and just Argentina as a whole didn't have the money to keep him in the country at that point because he was too big of a star. Somehow they did and turned their blind eye to Boca not paying debts and all kinds of things. So when he went to Barcelona, like at that point they couldn't keep him and Boca couldn't pay him. And most of the money from that transfer went to Argentinos Juniors because Boca hadn't been able to pay the transfer fee. He goes to Barcelona. That's where it all starts. All the madness. Okay, let me rephrase. That's where it kicks to a whole nother level because the madness was there before he went to Spain, but it found a whole nother gear in Spain. Then he basically ran himself out of Barcelona because of his dealings with the club. Barcelona was not Barcelona today either at that time. They were not in the greatest position. They were nowhere near what you know Barcelona today as. He needed to get out. He didn't have a whole lot of options, and he ends up going to Naples, which was not a big club at the time. They had never won Serie A. And he goes to Napoli, and they win Serie A twice. And that run with him at Napoli and winning a World Cup in 86 and getting back to a final in 90 and winning things with Napoli, that might be the greatest 5-6 year run in the history of the sport because of the degree of difficulty that was there. Because Argentina didn't have any other massive, huge players at that time either. So to win a World Cup in 86 was beyond crazy. To win Serie A with Napoli was pretty freaking crazy. And it all came crashing down very quickly after that. So it's a fascinating story beyond how great the footage is, beyond all of the twists and turns it takes. It's just an unbelievable story of a career. I can't wait to see it.
All right, let's see what else is up here. Oh, Matt Wagner with an expansion question.
Okay.
Any idea what realignment looks like right now for 2020? Would the East potentially have more teams for a year until Austin and Sacramento come on, or do the Fire temporarily move to the West?
I think the Fire move to the West. That's my guess. And it might be temporarily, it might not be. I think for next season they should move to the West and everything works better. I know it's been floated. I don't like the idea of Nashville moving to the West. I'd like to see Nashville and Atlanta play twice a year. I'd like to see Nashville and Cincinnati really play twice a year. I think moving them to the West would be a bad situation. So I'd like to see Nashville stay in the East. And Chicago's been in the West before. You know, Chicago going to the West means you get Chicago and Minnesota playing twice a year. That's a good thing. Chicago and Kansas City and Chicago and St. Louis playing twice a year. Those are good things. So you get, if I'm doing my math right, this year you add the two in the East, you move Chicago to the West. Then the next year you're adding two to the West with Austin and... No, St. Louis is not definitely 21. I think they might add another 21 team, which Charlotte could be a possibility. And if that can happen, then you get Austin going west, you get Charlotte coming east. Cool. Then you're good. But then you got St. Louis, and then it could be, Sacramento, it could be Phoenix, it could be somebody else. That would be two west. That's where it gets a little tricky. I don't know. I don't know what the easy way to do, but I think the best short term is Chicago to go west.
Katie Weaver, she has some logistics that she needs to have us help her with.
Uh-oh.
All kickoffs are actually at 4 p.m. Sunday with a question mark. Seeing Tom York at the Fox that night trying to figure the schedule out.
All kickoffs are at the same time. I know that much. Are they actually at 4 o'clock or 4:08? I'm not 100% sure. It should be as close to 4 as possible. Maybe it's like a 4:15 or something. It's not the situation that we had this past Sunday because it's not
4:25.
Yeah, but it's not two separate it's not double header with two separate kickoff starts where you want to package a pregame and a postgame and a pregame and a postgame. It's just one set of games. So I don't think it's going to be like a 4:30 kick advertised as 4. Could it be a little later than 4? Yeah. 4:08, 4:15 would be my guesses.
And Michael Ruiz is needing a confirmation as well. Just to confirm, Superclsico on at the Brew House tonight, right?
Yes. C.
Soccer over there at the Brew House at 6, right?
Si, senor, yes.
Because wrestling down here will be over at the NWA taping tonight.
Okay. That's kind of cool. It ain't Superclsico.
Nope. But we'll see what we can physically discuss. But wrestling down here will be at the NWA taping. NWA Power, as the new name of the program has been divulged.
Well, boy.
And two nights of taping, last night and tonight. And Jim Cornette is supposed to be in attendance at the NWA Power tapings.
I mean, if Marcelo Gallardo came out with a tennis racket and smacked somebody from Boca, I would not necessarily be surprised, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
I do think you could have some wild chaos in Superclsico that would be on the realm of professional wrestling. But yes. I will be at the Brew House. Nick Alifi will be at the Brew House. We'll be getting you set with all the soccer over there this evening starting at 6 o'clock, and we'll take you all the way up to the kickoff of River y Boca.
Mm-hmm. And apparently the Rock and Roll Express are supposed to be there, too, at NWA Power tonight.
Good grief. That's bad. Scary. Frightening.
Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. Ricky Morton facing peril. That should happen at some point with whoever they're paired up against. So that should be an interesting evening at wrestling down here. Jarrett is a thumbs up on the candy corn. Chris Hutchison is shooing him back into Canadian traffic because of said take.
Agreed. Completely and utterly agreed. Candy corn's nasty.
Oh, it's just awful. Just no. But short of Daniel Price's Maradona comment, we're caught up on Twitter.
We do have a little bit from Tofko chimed in about the youth side of things. To me, said he wished there was something in between rec and select, like a recreational plus that is almost like a regional rec kind of thing. Which, it's a good idea. I think it's something that state associations could take on. Maybe some states it might be a little tricky because of how spread out things are, but in the metro Atlanta area, for example, you could do a rec identification type of situation and bring talented rec kids together from different teams to do almost like ODP, like a very smaller Olympic development program type of situation, or what Atlanta United does with their regional development schools, where they bring kids from different clubs together to train as a supplement to the clubs that they play at, as opposed to pulling them away. There's definitely ways to do that. I love the idea of it. It's something that could happen. And it's from a training perspective. I think the biggest thing that gets lost in some of these youth soccer discussions is you don't become a better player by being on a team and just winning trophies and tournaments and medals and such. You become a better player truly from the training that you get day in and day out at the club, or the supplemental training that you get. And there's ways to find the right fit for your kid, because Joe Boss chimed in and talked about the jump in cost from rec to academy. Says it's 5 times more from a cost perspective, plus the time commitment. And you're talking about an 8-year-old. So the shame is the thought that an 8-year-old needs to be playing in an academy situation to become a professional player, become the best player they can be. No. I'm talking about an 8-year-old. They need to play. They need to play as much as possible and get as many touches as possible and be in the environment that fosters the right kind of soccer development. That doesn't have to be determined by cost. An academy at that age, you can't be producing professional players for 8-year-olds. You can't be telling people that you're producing professional players among 8-year-olds. They're 8 years old.
Yeah.
They need to just play. They need the foundational stuff. They need to be able to control the ball with both feet. They need to be able to dribble. They need to be encouraged to dribble. They need to be encouraged to take chances. Everything else is minimal at that point. At 8, you're starting to think about like passing with one other player, combining. You're not thinking tactics. You're not, like, none of that stuff should matter. You can do that in any environment. If you have the right coach, and this is the number one thing, and this is what I would always recommend to parents and kids, and these are things we're going to try to get into a little bit more. I've been talking to John Aiken from Oglethorpe University and Brookhaven FC about this. We've had some long and detailed conversations about things that we'd like to see change, and I think a lot of it is just the education side of it. If you have a kid, and we'll take Joe's situation for right now. You have a kid who's very, very good at 8 years old. Find the right club and or coach that gets the best out of your kid and helps them love the game and makes it fun, but also is doing the basics on giving them the environment to learn the basics as opposed to winning games. That's what's more important. It's not about the cost at that side. It's not about how many tournaments they win or any of that. That doesn't even matter. At that age, do they love what they're doing? Are they having fun? Are they being challenged in the appropriate ways, not just winning tournaments? Those are the important things. And that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. There's great coaches out there for that age who are parents but have the right mentality, or who are not coaching older kids because it's not the best situation for them. It doesn't have to cost $600 for an 8-year-old. It shouldn't cost $600 for an 8-year-old.
No.
Because there's no guarantee that money is going to lead to anything special. Now, if that is the situation, I will take the flip side of it. If that is a situation where that is paying for a player to be an 8-year-old player, to be in an environment that is a great environment, and they're being taught the right way, and they are learning the game in the right way, and they're having fun, and they're enjoying it, okay. Then it becomes, a question of, is it worth the cost for you? There are situations with academy programs that are created that way that are great and doing it the right way. Just because there's a cost doesn't mean it's bad. Just because there's a cost doesn't mean it's good. Those are the things that make this difficult. For an 8-year-old, make sure it's fun. And make sure that they are learning how to... I think for an 8-year-old, it's about developing the relationship with the ball. Because if you don't, at that age, when they get older, they're going to struggle more with the basic ball skills that are needed, and you develop those at a young age. If you have a coach at 8 for 8-year-olds telling a kid, don't dribble, then you need to find a different spot. You need to be encouraged to dribble and play and run at players and take chances. If you have a coach who's telling you to kick it long at 8, then yeah, you might need to go somewhere else. As a parent, you might need to say, yeah, this is not really the environment where my kid's going to enjoy the game and my kid's going to learn the game. So it's not easy. None of this stuff's easy. We're going to try to do more and talk about it more and bring this to the fore, either in this show or in a separate program, because it's something that needs to be talked about when all of these different things are happening across the landscape. They are all interconnected in different ways, and we will try to bridge the gap in some of those connections and do our best to cover it for you. But that's enough for today, I think, John, isn't it? Haven't we covered as much ground as we've ever covered on a show?
Yes, it is wide-ranging, and hopefully some of the information stuck.
I hope. We'll see. We'll come back tomorrow and see what stuck and see if we made any sense. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, everybody, for chiming in. Really fun today. I enjoyed it. We will be back at 6 o'clock with Soccer Over There, Champions League recap, weekend recap, and we'll start to ease into Superclsico, River y Boca tonight. It's on beIN Sports if you can watch it. 8:30. Come join us. Fanatis has beIN Sports, but it's on beIN Sports. If you have beIN Sports through other providers, you can watch it on beIN Sports. You can join us at the Brew House and watch it with us as well, and we'll do everything to set the table and kind of give you a little bit of things if you're new to it. If you hear us talking about it and you're like, all right, I'm in, I'm going to watch this time. I've never watched River Boca before. I've never watched Superclsico before. I've never watched Libertadores before. We'll try to give you a primer for that this evening on Soccer Over There. Until then, go get some lunch. Don't eat candy corn. It's gross. Mucha plata, y'all.
CONCACAF Champions League. Round of 8, second leg start tonight. Independiente and Saprissa, 10 o'clock Eastern. Mucho plata, y'all.